Are those back-to-school sales soon going to include firearms along with the usual notebooks and whiteboard markers? They just might if the Department of Education has its way. Erica L. Green reports in a New York Times article that Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos, Jeff's favorite person, she doesn't just support the idea of allowing teachers to be armed, but she is actually exploring ways to allow states to use federal funding to purchase guns for educators. It is difficult to overstate how significant this move would be, both in terms of the school safety issue and the continued struggle over education spending. Last March, in the wake of the Parkland shooting, Congress passed a bill allocating $50 million a year to districts to promote increased school safety measures. But this bill stipulated that the funding could not be used for the purchase of firearms. Well, Secretary DeVos and her team appear to be hard at work finding ways to allow schools to use federal money on guns. Green reports that the department is eyeing student support and academic enrichment grants, which make no mention of gun purchases. These grants represent about $1 billion of federal support for students under the Every Student Succeeds Act. If the department proceeds with this idea of using the grants to fund weapons purchases, this would represent the first time that any federal agency has authorized the purchase of weapons without a congressional mandate. Needless to say, news of this proposal has already spurred plenty of debate and backlash. Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut has already introduced legislation to block the Education Department from allowing school districts to use federal funds to purchase firearms. However, the chair of the House Education Committee, Virginia Foxx of North Carolina, has been reported as saying that these grants were intentionally designed to give states and school districts flexibility in designing policies to serve their communities. This is a sign that some in Congress may be open to DeVos's proposal. Jeff, you ready to strap up with your school-issued firearm?
Oh man, I'm gonna take a deep breath here real quick.
Woosah.
Woosah, right? We're gonna try to approach this rationally. So first of all, I will say in fairness, this does not represent the first time that the federal government would be arming schools and school districts with weaponry. Back in the Obama years, with all of the billions of dollars that we spent on military equipment for useless wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, they had the brilliant idea of sending old military equipment, including armored personnel carriers and tanks and those sorts of things, to schools. So that happened. I guess this isn't unprecedented. On the other hand, that was a terrible idea. And to repeat that would be another terrible idea. The hypocrisy of the Republicans who are in power right now apparently knows no bounds whatsoever. This is the same party that is hell-bent on saying no federal dollars can be spent on killing fetuses, but we're good with spending lots and lots of federal taxpayer dollars on guns that can be used to kill live students apparently in schools, and that's okay. So how they're able to reconcile that, I'm not sure. It's something beyond hypocrisy in my mind, but this is a terrible idea. Arming teachers, arming schools, creating more violent or potentially violent situations in our schools is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And I don't even think this is coming from a good place. This is really just functioning as a government subsidy to the gun manufacturers. And this is just some crazy stuff we have to put an end to.
So I'm hearing you are open to this proposal, possibly? You're willing to hear her out?
I'm an open-minded individual, but when things are just stupid, sometimes you gotta call a spade, and
right.
This is just a bad idea.
Now, I see the logic that some people are employing in this idea of arming teachers, especially people who don't work in schools, this idea that when a school shooter is there, if there were a teacher or a coach or some staff member that had a weapon, the shooter could be stopped before maybe authorities arrive and what have you. I see that, but what I don't see, and what I think a lot of folks on the internet commenting about guns in schools fail to see, is that there are many instances that I could think of when, as a teacher, where if I had been armed, things would have gone really bad. So I recently wrote about an experience I had during my first year teaching when it was early in the morning, nobody was around, and a student of mine got chased into my room by some gang members, and it ended fine. Had I been armed, the ending would have been really, really different. Despite my best intentions, I'm sure that I would have reached for a weapon and tried to, be protective and this and that, and it would have just escalated the situation and took it somewhere that it didn't need to be. And my entire career, my entire life, the lives of these young people who were in my room would have been dramatically taken off course because of that. And there are so many hundreds and thousands of instances across the country in different schools where adding a firearm to the situation would make things dramatically worse. And unfortunately, I'm really terrified of the inevitable, I can't say that word. I'm really terrified of the inevitable situation in which a firearm is employed by a teacher or staff member with great intentions to stop a threat, and unfortunately, an innocent life is taken in the crossfire. And when that happens, I just know if that were to happen, these folks calling for arming teachers, are not going to be out there admitting the mistake of that. It's just going to be something on like the teacher, and it's the problems that they weren't trained enough. So let's pay more money for more training, and it's just a tragic path that we are putting ourselves on.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And we must keep in mind where the impetus for this new policy proposal is coming from. It's not coming from teachers organizing and demanding guns. It's not coming from kids and families organizing and saying they hope their teachers are armed. It's coming from weapons manufacturers who want a new market. Plain and simple.
Absolutely. All right, folks, let us know your thoughts on this issue. Please remember to like our page and add your comments and share with your friends. And join us again at aotashow.com for more stories.